Hi, folks. My name is Jan. I'm with the Shamanism Works and the Gaian Fairy Congress, and I am delighted to introduce to you Summer Starr. We just completed a 90-minute workshop on tending ancestral roots, and we are looking at we're going to be doing a four-part series on Wednesday evening, starting at 5 to 6:30 Pacific Standard Time for Wednesdays. And then after that, we're going to have Orion Foxwood, who is a dear queer witch, going to be doing a ritual online. This is all online because we're in various time zones. But Orion Fox would be doing the River of Blood, tending to ancestral entanglements. And I wanted to interview Summer Starr, because this is ancestral work. This is ancestral lineage healing work. And delve into a little bit, like, why is this important? Why is this? We're also looking at having a four-part series and an intro for the queer community. And these are people who've had a lot of, they're outsiders. They're not really a lot of times not part of their lineage, or their lineage is very troublesome as queer people. I'm a gay man. We're the black sheep, or we're the rainbow sheep. And a lot of times our jobs are, like, what are our jobs? I think, like, how do we work with ancestors, and why is clearing inherited family trauma is important, and how do we do that?
Yeah. Oh, those are big questions. Just start in the meat of it.
Just let's dive in.
Yeah. Yeah. My own path for healing originally started out doing more past life healing, more like what I would call soul stream healing, like where I really wanted to affirm and know myself as a soul, as a spirit, as a unique identity. And partially because I realized I was a bit of a black sheep in my family constellation, and I really wanted to affirm who I was. And what I found in that healing process was that, that worked really, really helped. And I had a struggle really grounding that and bringing that into the world because of the ancestral wounds that I was inherited. And as much as I wanted to just have boundaries with certain parts of my family and just be like, I reject thee, I had to at some point say, okay, there's an energetic block here, because my soul expression was actually something that the ancestors who were unhealthy were like, we're going to shut that down. We're going to block that out, and so me actually going to my wise and well ancestors and saying, I need your support here. Like, there's a whole bunch of ghosty stuff that's like blocking me from expressing, the beauty and wonder of who I am. And they were like, oh yeah, we've been waiting to be able to support someone who can address some of this dysfunction. And it wasn't that I had to have the burden of addressing it myself, but I needed to anchor the well energy back into the lineage by expressing that beauty. And so, it's not a matter of like going into the health, it's the dishealth, the disease. It's more about having boundaries with that and welcoming in the blessings. That's the process that I have been trained in for the ancestral lineage healing that comes from ancestral medicine. So that's my interpretation of that question that you were asking. Yeah.
So, what are for your, um, okay, so there have been studies being shown that people who are born into, let's say, people who have survived the Holocaust, that they have almost like their DNA has been, they've got extra strands that make them more susceptible to post-traumatic stress behavior, addictions, marital strife, depression. It is a inherited family trauma. It's in the blood. So we can go back and work with our ancestors to clear up the lineage, to clear up the slavery, trauma, war. There's a lot of. It seems like a lot of times ancestor. I'm kind of going off on a tangent we didn't quite talk about, but there's times where almost like the lineage there's a break in the lineage because of emigration. You get so many people who cross the Atlantic. They leave their homesteads. They leave their connection with their land. There's war. There's strife. There's famine. Where you get it has an imprint on
Mm-hmm.
everybody who comes afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we do have the medical language for that in epigenetics. They can see certain things turn on and turn off. From the scientific perspective, and um, yeah, and it's both the burden of like, wow, we inherited this, but also the hopefulness is that, well, okay, we inherited something that turned off or on. Now we can shift that. There is an opportunity to actually looking and addressing those pieces. And what I will say is that, it's not about denying what we've inherited. And, there is an element of having boundaries of like, I'm not just going to stand here and hold all of the manure that my people have just passed on and passed on and passed on. But, I'm one of the reasons we go to the wise and well ancestors for support is we're like, can you please dig me out of this pile, that I've inherited? And it's actually calling on spiritual help for holding the burdens that we've inherited. Um, and and realizing that we do have that support. We're not just down here downstream inheriting everything. There is other kinds of support that you'll see in traditions where they tend ancestors on a regular basis. They know how important it is to tune into that support and ask their people for that support. There's a reason why there are so many cultures that maintaining their relationship with their ancestors is like pretty high on the priority list, because they can offer a lot of support and address the issues of the previous generations on our behalf, so that we're not just stuck here holding that huge karmic debt. And it's complicated. I mean, I really appreciate the work of Resmaa Menakem, who says, when there has been massive amounts of cultural trauma that have not been addressed, it becomes culture. Like, we're sitting in this entire culture of like unaddressed trauma, and it can feel really dense and really burdensome. And that's why we go to the health. We go, we were talking earlier and I mentioned biodynamic cranial sacral work. You go to the health of the system and expand that health and resource, and it makes it just a little bit easier to sit in the density of it. Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of fascinating I'm a Scorpio. I get accused of being intense. We have an American culture where we have no ancestor work, and you're talking about tending ancestors. So I've got two questions. So can you give us an example of tending ancestors, and then we'll go into the four-part series and kind of what do people get from joining you in the four-part series? So tending ancestors, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing is when we do ancestral lineage healing in the modality that I've been trained in, we actually are asking the wise and well ancestors to do the actual tending. We're not actually going in there and, getting super involved in the nitty gritty of like what needs to heal and how it needs to heal. So our role in the tending is like asking for that support and showing up to create those relationships with the health, and do whatever is ours to do to learn from the patterns of not health so that we're not repeating them and perpetuating them. That is our responsibility. um but it's also, the tending again goes back to how do we tend our relationship to the healthy. And so, like, for example, I've had a client whose people loved their hands in the earth. And they were like, every time you put your hands in the garden and you're pulling, weeds and you're planting things, just think of us, remember us, know that your body is in resonance with that which we value and love. And that itself can be tending. You're nourishing that connection to health, in that, and that supports your nervous system too. So that's what I'm talking about when I say tending. Yeah.
Hmm. So the four-part series that's coming up. Um, Actually, I'm really curious. How did you get involved with ancestor work? What was it that pulled you in? Because it's only been like the last years. I mean, if you're doing working with Native Americans, you always hear about working with ancestors, but for the population at large, you don't. How did you get in to working with ancestors? What drew you in?
Yeah, it was really my nature spirit and plant connection. I started studying herbalism, and I had a workshop by some teachers. I was learning pretty much everything they offered. I was like, I'll take that. And they offered a class about ancestors, and I had never really thought about that. And that class really unlocked for me, wow, okay, I'd been doing all this personal healing, but I didn't realize that it wasn't landing completely because I hadn't tended this entire other field of, for me, it was interference, as well as incredible insight and knowledge. The health of my lineages amplified the personal work that I was doing, because they're like, oh yeah, we know how to do that and we can show you more, you know. So and actually the teachers, they said, a lot of times the plants will take people into ancestral healing because they know their ancestors. They hold that resonance of like, the oak remembers the oak remembers the oak, remember, back in time, like, yeah.
It's
Mhm.
so funny you say that because I just was talking with an oak tree like a couple of days ago, and the oak tree was saying, I knew your ancestors, and I knew the ones before them, and the
Mhm.
ones before them.
Yeah.
And it's so good to see you again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow. So if you're working
Well,
with plants, a lot of times ancestors will come in.
yeah. And I will say a lot of times origins of many of our ancestral troubles were because of their violations of agreements and good etiquette with the beyond human.
Yeah.
So there's a relationship there about how our ancestors were with the land, and there's beautiful, again, strengths and knowledge and wisdom from the health, and then there's a lot to tend from the not health. So yeah. And
Wow.
I will say that, before kind of talking about the 4-part series, I will say that, you know, this work, while it feels important and significant for people to be doing, um, it is good to have that internal check about. I'm part of a network of a lot of practitioners who do a lot of one-on-one ancestral support. And for some people, they really do need that one-on-one support because there's enough, trouble there that they need that sort of like, okay, we are here with you individually. And then there's other people that the group environment of a class is a great introduction to that work. And maybe they'll want to do some one-on-one work later, but so having that sort of internal check-in with yourself before you're like, yeah, let's do this group thing. And know that sometimes it does need to be more one-on-one supported just because of the level of complexity of what you might be holding, and just honor that with each individual. Yeah.
You say complexity, but there's also a lot of joy in here. It's funny. It's like I got connected with my male ancestry on both my mother's side and my father's side, and I can feel them like my mother's side here, my male side here, and they're kind of fun. And I mean, it's all right wing. I mean, pretty right wing, conservative, military, and it's like a queer boy tree hugger gets born into that lineage. Yeah, I've got some work to do. Like I'm the one who's going to change. Like it ends with me. But these guys are so fun.
Yeah.
There's this kind of camaraderie, and I have been pulled into this camaraderie. But I even asked them at one point to find me a husband. I'm married now. I mean, there's some things that have happened. I've got their support,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
their support has been um, really beautiful. I mean, so I've got these guys are my comrades. Sounds like a revolution.
Yeah.
I mean, they are, and
Yeah.
they really. God, I can feel the presence right now. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I just wanted to bring it because this is all not all trauma. This is also
Mhm.
regaining a connection that as I'm going to pull myself in here. As a queer boy, I thought that I left home early. I thought that like, fuck those people. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with them. Guess what? I'm part of them now, and there's a lot of camaraderie.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's going to the health again, and orienting, to the support. And there can be a lot of joy. And um, my view is that there are so many things that our lineages want to express and experience and create that they weren't able to because of whatever their conditions were back then. Sometimes it was a resource situation. Sometimes it was just like oppressive society. Sometimes it was, like all of those things. And when we're able to engage our unique creativity and do the things that they weren't, ever able to do, they're like, wow, look at what our descendant is doing. Like, isn't that amazing? Like, um, when you're orienting towards the health, that's what the response is from the health. The not health can sometimes be like, oh, shut that down, that's not healthy, that's not, that's, we don't do that in this household, that kind of energy. And so it's like we're orienting to the health that's like, yeah, we're gonna we're going to support
Yeah.
you.
Yes, and you've got their support, and there's I'm speaking for myself again. There's an energetic. I can feel it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like when I focus in on it, it's like my back straightens. It's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Because it's in your blood, it's in your body.
yeah,
There's an extra
yeah,
sort of emphasis of like, ooh, I have some vital energy. Yeah.
yes. I have some vital energy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So kind of going to
4 part
the
series.
four-part series. Yeah. Because it's just sort of leads into that. Because again, my personal healing journey, I was focused first and foremost on my own soul's journey. And so the first part of the four-part series is really affirming that, each one of us is born with some sort of unique creativity and insight and joy and thing that wants to be expressed, that is, I call it my soul stream, but it's like, there's this thing. And so it's really about establishing boundaries with that which is not allowing that to express fully, and starting to orient to the health that can support it in expressing itself, that wants to be like, hey, we see you shining there, we want to, love that up and give more vitality to it. So that's the first part of the four-part series, focusing on your own soul expression. And then the second is going deeper into how your ancestors can nourish, and what needs to heal in that relationship. So it's more focused on the ancestors, on the ancestors are definitely in the first one, but it's like really deepening that relationship with the ancestors in the second part of the series. And then the third is looking at what our people knew about how to anchor and weave our soul gifts into our current world, our current, relationship to the land, our relationship to community, like how to be part of a web of nourishment. So it's how to be part of the larger community of nourishment, whether it's the humans or the beyond humans. Yeah. And then the fourth is kind of integrating all of that. But yeah.
This is what you're doing is very. I'm going to use the word revolutionary. You're bringing back in your community of ancestral lineage workers. I don't know what to call them. You're This is so needed. I'm just feeling this rush. Like this is so needed at this point, at this time. America does not do ancestor lineage healing. We're all these black sheep that need to get to work.
I
Healing.
want to support
Sorry,
all the black
folks.
sheep. I'm like, all the rainbow sheep, I'm like, please, we need more of that freedom of creativity and expression. And, that's the medicine, and
That is the medicine. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's that quote that gets passed around, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. Like, we're the
Mhm.
ones. We're it. Like,
Yeah,
okay, we're
yeah.
it. Um, and then right after the 4 part series, we're going to have Orion Foxwood, who is a queer traditional conjure man from the South, who's going to be leading us in ancestral healing with the River of Blood. Um, yeah.
It's
Summer,
good
anything?
stuff. I experienced his work before, and I just am like, yeah, good, good, good stuff.
Good stuff. Any
Yeah, and
last
what I will
word?
say is there are so many ways to do ancestral
Yeah.
work. And the way that I've been trained through ancestral medicine and Daniel Ford's work is just one spiritual technology to approach this. There's so many different ways, and we need it all. It's so important, in my mind.
Thank you, Summer. I'm going to be putting all the descriptions, how to get a hold of us, scholarships, etc., in the description on the YouTube.
Mhm.
Um, Summer, thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to be here.
All right.